Vanessa is an interesting character in the Five Nights at Freddy's universe. The first human character to have an actual in-game model that wasn't made of purple pixels, Vanessa also served as our first protagonist in the post-Ultimate Custom Night era. We know a whole lot about her, and yet also nothing at all. We know she was the player in Help Wanted, that she got possessed by GGY, which caused her Vanny persona to start hacking the Pizzaplex, trying to kill Gregory, and whatever the hell she was doing with Burn Trap. And then if you collect all the retro CDs, we even get to find out her backstory. Or do we?
Is the backstory in the retro CDs one that we can trust? I mean, if they are, yippee, we finally have spelled out lore in this franchise. But if not, why include them at all? Why give her a fake backstory just to retract it? Or is it someone else's past being forced upon her, just like Fazbear's past is being forced upon our new protagonists? Hi, I'm Cori.
And I'm Connie.
And what the hell is up with Vanessa?
And a very happy Halloween to every witch, ghoul, ghost-possessed animatronic, phone guy, and creepy creature in our audience. Everyone congratulate Connie on actually being able to finish this video in time. Now put on your foxy masks and grab your complimentary gag order black licorice, because no more dilly-dallying, let's get analyzing.
Despite Vanessa's limited screen time in these games, we know quite a lot about her backstory, mostly in comparison to some other protagonists. We know she worked for Fazbear Entertainment as a beta tester for Help Wanted, in which she collected the tapes and followed their instructions only to get possessed by GGY. Once collecting the Vanny mask and GGY plush in the DLC, Vanessa can be heard having a conversation with the entity, saying that she made something, most likely her Vanny suit, and that she's getting ready to do something fun. Fun for her and the entity, I mean, probably not fun for anyone else.
We then see a post-possession Vanessa in the FNaF AR emails. She is still working for Fazbear, but now she's listed as security for the Fazbear Funtime service. In one of the CDs we're about to talk about, she says that her job actually doesn't involve a lot of computer work, which does bring in the question of why she was beta testing a video game.
In the Fazbear Frights short Prankster, which details what appears to be a part of Help Wanted's creation, the non-techie Hope is brought in to beta test as an outside observer to the game process, so maybe it's something like that?
In AR, Vanessa pretends to be an IT rep to trick Silver Parasol Games into giving her full access to their company. She then takes out their virus, GGY, and then locks every employee out of their account and probably gets them all mauled by Shamrock Freddy and the Toxic Gossip Train. She then jumps ship from the sinking app and gets herself a job at the Pizzaplex. A message in Security Breach reveals that while she wasn't actually qualified for the head security job she applied for, someone high up managed to get her the position anyway. While this is happening, concerned emails from another employee reveal that she's been acting strange and making some pretty disturbing searches, one of which is just the word help.
In between AR and Security Breach, we do have to do a little speculation. Based on the messages you find in-game, you could piece together that she is the only human employee left after some kind of all-staff meeting. She also seems to not share consciousness with her Vanny side, expressing confusion at the events that Vanny would probably know about and having no recollection of her time chasing Gregory. Once you make it to 6 a.m. and have the option to leave, you then get a message from Vanessa over the PA system.
I mentioned this on Twitter.
I think you deserve a reward. Go check the main stage.
Oh, Vanessa.
While this seems like an obvious trap, and it can lead to being found by Moon, Vanessa actually does leave something on the stage. A quote, retro CD, which can be played in the secret Michael Afton living room. Don't question it yet. You can use Freddy with Roxy's eyes to collect multiple CDs, all of which detail several therapists attempting to talk to two different patients, Vanessa and a mysterious silent character named Patient 46. Now, since the game's dropped, we pretty much know now that Gregory is Patient 46. We said in our last video that the books are secondary evidence and not primary, but GGY is pretty damn clear that Gregory was, at some point, under GGY's control and working with Vanessa as Patient 46. It's pretty much one of the most concrete things we have in FNaF so far. There are so many videos on this if you're not caught up. Now what we're discussing here. He seems to have no memory of this, meaning that either Vanessa or Vanny is now taunting him with the information that he was a part of this. So with this knowledge, it makes the tapes a bit more interesting.
Vanessa's half of the tapes show her moving through 3 therapists during her time at the Fun Time service. They tell us that Vanessa was having encrypted conversations with Gregory, in which Gregory seemed to be manipulating her, though it was likely the different parts of GglitchTrap communicating, and she gets caught buying materials for her Vanny suit. Every time a therapist asks her or Gregory about the Pizzaplex or gets too close to their activities, Gregory, under possession of GGY, lures them to the mall and murders them, only for another to take their place.
At this point in Vanessa's story, she's very quiet, subdued, and reserved, and explicitly passive. Her tapes end when she is transferred to a different location. The distance doesn't seem to be the problem, however, but the fact that the company-mandated therapy appointments are ending with this transfer. Keep this in mind. It's a surprise tool that'll help us later.
Something very interesting about Vanessa, though, is revealed in the 3rd CD, that being her proposed backstory.
Hi, go ahead. Sit down.
I don't know you. What happened to...
Oh, we'll get to know each other in no time. I've read through all your files, so I feel like we've been talking for weeks. I feel like I know your dad, too. Bill, right? Your dad's name was Bill? I'm sorry, what did you say?
I try to do what I'm supposed to do.
I know you do. Your supervisor notes that you follow instructions perfectly. Your dad made you follow instructions, didn't he? I'm talking about the custody battle between your mum and your dad. Your dad didn't play fair, did he? He used to make your mum look bad in court. I'm so sorry that happened to you. Do you want to talk about how that felt? I suppose I don't need you to tell me it felt bad to have a parent scare you into saying things that weren't true. He manipulated you. It wasn't your fault. It's really sad, but it's common for one parent to use their child to hurt the other parent. I know your mum after she lost the custody case.
I was supposed to be a good girl.
What happened to her had nothing to do with you, even though it was your testimony that did it. Was that testimony true? No, I didn't think so. But your dad is to blame, not you.
So, to recap in case that got confusing, Vanessa has an abusive dad named Bill, who's apparently responsible for her more passive personality. In a custody battle between her parents, Bill convinced her to lie about her mother in court to make her look worse. When the mom lost due to the daughter's testimony, it's not stated what she did, but she probably killed herself, which, damn, now the daddy issues track.
Now let's talk about the yellow rabbit in the room. Bill is a nickname for William, and the AR emails tell us that Vanessa's surname starts with A. Who do we know who's a William A? And not only that, we have the friggin' movie to contend with in which Vanessa is explicitly William Afton's daughter and pawn. But does that transfer to the games? Likely not.
You see, Vanessa is 23 in Special Delivery. While we don't have a given year for that game, her email lists her as Nessie97, and in emails it's common for people to use their birth date, or in this case, birth year, to distinguish themselves. This would put Special Delivery at 2020, which is exactly the year debuted. Of course, this could conflict with Security Breach, which takes place in either 2025 or 2035 based on this poster, and of course it depends on how long Vanessa worked at the location before the staff bot apocalypse. Presumably not long, since Gregory is still, like, a child when Breach happens, and he and Vanessa work together to even get her security job. But if we say that 2020 is too early, that would put her birth year at even later than 1997, in the early 2000s. Basically, 97 is the earliest year that makes sense.
All those scary math numbers to say, any of those birth years are, most likely, after William's been spring-locked in a back room. The books have him spring-locked in 1995, and while the movie puts it in the year 2000, that would make Game Vanessa 3 years old max when this is going down.
And, okay, even if we say he had a toddler at the time, or we stretch and say he somehow got a woman pregnant the night before going to Freddy's to collect some dead child remnant, no matter what argument you say, he would then be dead and locked in a back room, and thus not able to appear in family law court to argue for custody of his kid. Not only would William have to make the kid, he has to be present in her life to traumatize her. The yellow rabbit isn't driving her to school. This isn't Into the Pit.
You ruined my life! How could I ruin your life? I wasn't even there.
The timelines do not match up whatsoever. So in her backstory, her dad can't be William Afton, right? Gotta be just some other guy. That is, of course, if her backstory is real. She does notably never verbally confirm in the tape whether or not that's her actual past. But like, why would she have a fake one? Let's break this tape down.
As soon as Vanessa enters the room, the second therapist, GGY names her Raylan Lawrence, immediately confronts her with an exposition dump of a backstory. When I first heard this, I thought, wow, what a shitty therapist. But then there was the line in CD 13.
Well, I hate to do this right off the bat, but I've been directed to ask you about this. Apparently, I'm the fourth therapist you've had.
So the therapists are specifically directed to talk about certain things with each patient, meaning that someone told Raylan that when Vanessa walked in, she should immediately start infodumping her traumatic backstory. This information becomes very interesting when we get to CD 5, which is the therapist's next recorded session with Vanessa after the whole trauma dump thing.
What you might not know is that this person who's been sending you messages has been hacking into your personal files too. These are the same files I have here. These files are full of details about your life. Do you know what that means?
I'm not in the tech department. I just type on the computers.
I know that. But what matters here is that this person who is contacting you knows a lot about you.
Lots of people know more than I do. Sometimes I need to listen.
The person she's contacting is Gregory/GlitchTrap. GregTrap, GGY. So GGY specifically, in his hacking, is called out to have access to the files about her personal life.
AKA the files about her backstory, which becomes incredibly suspect when you get to the final CD, number 16, in which the fifth therapist confronts Gregory.
Still not talking? Alright. Well then let's do this. Why don't we talk about the research I did in your past, shall we? Some therapists think they should only focus on information they get from their clients, but some therapists, like me, think it's helpful to find out about clients from other sources. Wanna guess what I found out when I looked into the tragedy of your past? All that stuff about your parents? You aren't even gonna look at me? Fine. You can look at the floor all you want. But it won't change the fact that none of what you said in your file about your parents was true. The truth is, you had great parents, a great childhood. Why did you lie? Look at me. Tell me why you lied. You... Well, I can understand why you might feel angry about the way I just confronted you. Why don't we come back to this another day? You're shaking your head as though that's not going to happen.
GGY decidedly lied about his past when talking to the therapists, a lie that's easily trackable. We get told that he has access to Vanessa's files too, immediately after we get Vanessa's past. Who's to say they aren't both lying? Or not even lying. The first therapist, Mary Schneider, never references Vanessa's backstory the way Raylan does. And once again, Vanessa never verbally confirms that the story Raylan is spouting out is true. She only says,
I try to do what I'm supposed to do. I was supposed to be a good girl.
Which could also mean that she's just complying with what GlitchTrap is now feeding her. Now, an important question is, why? Why would GlitchTrap give her a false backstory and then try to gaslight it into her? Well, mainly because it's time to stop calling this loser GlitchTrap and start calling him what we all know he is. We're not gonna argue Burn Trap Mimic here. Rapid fire. Same mechanical parts. Mimic can put himself back together. GlitchTrap is seen mimicking voices. And just watch underscores how Ruin secretly solved the Burn Trap debate video here. That's pretty freaking convincing.
Now, we all know the Mimic is trying to copy Afton, most likely due to him getting a FNaF crash course once uploaded to Help Wanted. And we can all guess that in doing so, it's trying to mimic the Afton family as well. What with the Staffbot family and the whole Gregory looks exactly like Cassidy thing. So if it's set on mimicking the Afton family, then whoever it's trying to force Vanessa to be fits into that mold. So, well, we can start with who Vanessa shares a voice actor with.
Do you ever play make-believe? Pretend to be one way when you are really the other? It's very important.
Vanessa and Elizabeth have similar coloring and obviously a similar voice, but what we need to focus on mainly is if Elizabeth matches up with Vanessa's fake backstory, since whoever was actually the child on trial is who the Mimic is trying to get her to be. In FNaF 6, Elizabeth as Scrap Baby has become extremely loyal to her father, excitedly joining him in his murder rampage in hopes that she'll make him proud. In the fourth closet, Elizabeth acts a lot like Vanessa does in the games, being completely subservient to William in a desperate bid for fatherly approval. It wouldn't be out of the question for her to lie in court because her beloved daddy asked her to. Or at least, it wouldn't be out of the question for fourth closet Elizabeth too.
Yeah, we're arguing against Elizabeth Vanessa, and not just because we don't think Vanessa got Charlie botted. Something a lot of us tend to forget is that the novel series is Elizabeth, while being another version of Elizabeth is still another version. In the game, Circus Baby only becomes subservient to William in what seems to be the last day of her afterlife, at the point where he doesn't even seem to have contacted her, considering she still thinks FNaF 6 was his idea. So all that stuff she does for him in the books does not happen in the games. As to what we do see in the game, Circus Baby is totally down to kill who she thinks is William Afton and wear him like a skin suit. So the loyalty to William came after she got kicked out by the MCI hive mind. And most importantly, the main character trait of the child on trial, aka the person the Mimic is making Vanessa, is that they will do whatever their dad says. While we don't see much of Elizabeth's actual life, the main thing we see her do is not listen to her dad. All of her lines are badgering him about wanting to do something he's explicitly told her not to do, and then going and doing it. There's also the question of why the Mimic would make an adult security guard its Elizabeth when it could have taken its pick of any kid once it got to the Pizzaplex.
Okay, sidetrack here on a theory that's too short for a video, but speaking of the Mimic finding an Elizabeth, when rereading GGY, I did find it interesting that Gregory, in his appearances, is almost always hanging out with Ellis rather than Tony. They stay together when visiting the Pizzaplex, they hang out together without Tony. When GGY decides to rewrite the story, he makes it into something that appeals to Ellis. And Ellis has green eyes. It makes me wonder if, while Gregory was in the school to get access to the therapists, he might have also been, say, scoping out a little.
That aside, really the other main thing Vanessa Beth has going for it is that they look similar and have the same voice. Yet, Heather Masters also voices Glamrock Chica, and I don't think Elizabeth is possessing her. I mean, we've argued for crazier things, I guess, but no, we don't actually think that. Also, Gregory's voice actress also does Roxy, and it's not like they're spiritually connected.
Gregory's my friend.
That's disgusting.
Also, let's not forget that the only time Game Baby was following Will was in FNaF 6, which was not only not in Help Wanted, but literally the last thing Baby ever did before getting set on fire. Not exactly the best role model for reluctant follower Vanessa. So of course you may be asking, if we don't think she's the Elizabeth, who would she be?
Well, Bill A. has 3 kids. Our crying child is already taken by the little striped shirted boy climbing into the Golden Bear animatronic. We just argued against Elizabeth, but the oldest child is pretty well known for doing what his dad said.
Wow! If I had a nickel for every time
dual process theory made the case that it was Michael all along,
I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right?
I promise this won't be all of our theories, it's just that Michael pops up a lot, almost like he's the main character of FNaF or something.
You'll notice that the retro CDs can only be played once you access the Michael room. Why is there a Michael room? If you believe Michael's alive, why the fuck would he recreate his room? Especially because it sucks.
Specifically, that motherfucking lamp. It's in Sister Location, it's in FNaF 4, it's the same lamp by the way. The wallpaper sucks, but mostly the fucking lamp. Like, it's in, they have multiple of these lamps in FNaF 4. It's just yellow,
maybe Scott just found or made the model, I don't know.
Like,
But
it's
80s,
in
90s,
all
so
of
I
these
understand,
places,
and
it's in the movie!
Personally, we don't think Michael's alive, so that just makes this even more confusing. But isn't it interesting that the CDs that tell us about Vanessa and her fake past can only be played in the room that's so obviously connected to Michael. Also the room with the writing on the wall in code, probably mimic code considering the books, telling someone to destroy the animatronics. The sticky note room, which also has this code, was seemingly made to teach someone to be someone, presumably how to be a member of the Afton family, as we see binary transfer to English. So could this room have been where Vanessa was sent to become a Michael?
You stepped into my force mask machine. You're mine. Michael follows his father's directions up until he gets gutted like a cat in a sub-series finale, which is not only not in Help Wanted, but so late in the timeline that, the dumbass mimic hasn't thought of it yet. Or it has, and it already has the scooper prepared. Regardless, if you follow our major timeline, you know that we are pretty sure that Michael was night guarding as a favor for his dad due to his fear of what William could do to him. Speaking of which, he was also literally an adult security guard. So why not mimic him with another adult security guard? And lest we forget, when Vanessa appears in the movie, she seems to supersede the role that Mike had in the games.
Michael was a bit of a rowdy kid, but we notably never see him in the presence of his dad during FNaF 4. He's only acting out when his dad isn't there. So what if his fear of his dad started before the whole nightmare experiment bunker ordeal? And what if William used that fear to get Mrs. Afton out of the picture?
If Michael is the child at court, then the mimic is trying to turn Vanessa into a Michael, which not only tracks given that's what she did in the filmverse, but because she managed to prove herself to the new Yellow Rabbit without even realizing. After all, if Michael is Mike Schmidt, Fred Smith, and the FNaF 3 guard, all 3 of those games were included in Help Wanted, and Vanessa won all of those games. He already knows she's good at pretending to be Michael Afton.
Which also puts her and Gregory's relationship to the spotlight. After all, the mimic is either making Gregory into the crying child, or it picked Gregory specifically for their similarities, which also makes the first thing Gregory says about Vanessa really interesting.
I don't know who she is, but she's trying to get me.
Which, in the files, we can hear an alternate, non-censored for ratings take on the line.
I don't know who she is, but she's gonna kill me.
You ever notice that the animatronics only try to kill Gregory when they're malfunctioning? When they're just under the Mimic 1 virus, all they do in the jump scare is pick him up and presumably bring him to Vanny. Even when Burntrap sees Gregory, he seems to be trying to get the animatronics to just bring Gregory to him. And that's because the Mimic can't kill Gregory. At least, not before its Michael can give him some serious head trauma. It's not the Mimic's role to shove the kid's head into a bear mouth. It's Michael's. It's Vanessa's.
So, we solved it! Vanessa is being gaslit into being Michael, and the Mimic wants her to kill Gregory. That was a fun and nice video, which is definitely over now. Don't look at the runtime. Don't.
Yeah, so we do still have some questions with this explanation. That being, why did the Mimic choose Vanessa to be its Mike when there are other beta testers that it killed immediately? Especially since she doesn't match Michael in appearance like Gregory does to Cassidy. And how did she end up in its clutches anyway? After all, she wasn't just a beta tester there to do her job and leave like you'd think a security guard with another job to do would be. She was a beta tester hunting for Easter eggs.
I had to hide these logs away from the core gameplay files, in a place that only a beta tester would look.
And finally, if the therapy tapes don't hold the secrets to her past, what does? Then what is Vanessa's story?
So, this is the part where we're going to sound insane. The first half of this video was a theory we're fairly certain of, and we have a lot of evidence to back up. The second half is going to sound like we're huffing glue, so if you want to just take the first half and run with it and ignore our wild ramblings, we understand. But also, this is the FNaF community, where everyone's a Charlie bot and the Afton Agony amalgamation has a chance at being canon now. So let's have a little fun, shall we?
So again, why did the Mimic choose Vanessa and not any of the other beta testers? Was she just easier to mind control? Possible. We know Jeremy either chopped his own face off rather than deal with the rabbit, or Mimic thought it would be funny to play Withered Bonnie with its first victim. Tape Girl seems to have gotten out of there, with the Mimic only being able to copy her voice. But even then, we don't know for sure, so it's entirely possible that Vanessa was just the first victim that worked out for it.
Yet at the same time, Fazbear Entertainment seems suspiciously fond of Vanessa. Her her becoming head security guard is immediately noted as suspicious, but that could entirely just be Glitchtrap's hacking, right? Except it's not just when the Mimic is interfering. Frishka, Frushka, Fred Catool, it's time to bring out our surprise tool and look at that third therapist, Trina Welch, again.
Our sessions don't have to be company mandated.
Now that is an interesting drop. Vanessa's therapy is company mandated, and not through the Mimic's doing. After all, why would it want Vanessa in a position where she could talk to an outsider? It seems to be sending Gregory into therapy specifically to negate the damage her therapy sessions could cause. And with this line from Mary Schneider...
Well, it's been a while since we last spoke.
It seems that she's been taking this therapy for not just a long time, but long enough that there's been a notable gap between her appointments with Schneider. Considering Trina specifically felt the need to inform her that she worked outside of the company, it seems that all these therapists are provided by Fazbear, and that they were mandated for a long time. AKA, very, very likely before the Mimic got into her mind, since Lewis notes her strange behavior as a recent development.
Which is what brings us to the important question. Why in the fuck is Fazbear Entertainment paying for a random employee's therapy sessions? They won't pay to clean their animatronics. They won't pay for people to double check they're not putting deadly viruses into their big comeback VR game. You have to pay out of pocket for safety belts in the pizzeria attractions. And while Ralph says he's making above minimum wage in the week before, that was also after 11 years of working at the same company. We see in security breach messages that employees can get fired on the spot, and that nobody notices if they go missing for several weeks. If you believe Tales from the Pizzaplex is, or partially, canon to the games, they're not even paying the game dev. They just kidnapped him and gaslit the hell out of him. Does this seem like a company that would voluntarily pay for a security guard or beta tester to talk about her feelings?
Now add to that she was immediately given a position she wasn't qualified for, with word from someone high up, and the possibility, however low, that wasn't the Mimic. And whether it was the Mimic or not, none of corporate seems suspicious of the fact that after they very handily replaced every living employee with a robot that doesn't need paid, she still remained as the sole human left. Cassie's dad is gone. Any of the employees from Tales are gone. The only one left is Vanessa. Vanessa A.
Now, here's a very relevant question. Would Fazbear pay for therapy for a random employee, or might they extend that luxury to their one and only company, Nepo Baby?
But girls, we just dismissed the idea of her being William's kid in the game timeline. Okay, technically we only dismissed the idea of him being court dad, but yeah, it's pretty unlikely that the guy who was doing this was making kids in 1997. But wouldn't you know it, one of his actual kids made it to adulthood.
I know this could be a big stretch, mainly because, look at this man. This man's gay as hell. Also, this bathroom, that is a single man living space. But if sister location occurs after FNaF 1, which you can assume either through Molten MCI theory or the suspiciously alive Dave from Maintenance in the week before.
Hey, no. Dave from Maintenance, my friend and yours!
That puts the scooping at no earlier than the date that Freddy's closed, which puts us solidly at the mid to late 90s. So either Will or Mike hit it off with someone right before then a kid could conceivably happen. But again, it seems way more likely for Mike, who was living out of the house in a neighborhood where everyone liked him, than William, who is in a bunker learning how to fuse souls together. And if this happened when Vanessa was still in utero, it's possible that neither of them knew. More probable for William, who doesn't give a single shit about his son's dating life, but of course, with them gone, that leaves the question.
But what about the baby?
This bit was probably referring to the character in the game literally named Baby, but LOL. Also, Vanessa's purple jacket in the Free Vanny ending is the same shade as the vampire's suit, but I digress.
If Vanessa is an actual, literal Nepo baby, then she'd be the only one still left with Fazbear. As stated, only one Afton kid made it to adulthood, and even then, not for that long. And Charlie kicked it pretty early too. Unless Sammy Emily wants to make a surprise appearance with the steel chair, Vanessa would be the last of the founders' families left.
We all agree Princess Quest is somewhat symbolic of Vanessa. And what is a princess? The daughter of the leader.
So why not give her an easy job? Oh, she's got some kind of anxiety trauma? What therapist does the local school source from? Get one of those. Her mom's probably not around anymore, considering how isolated Vanessa appears to be without the Mimic. And the Mimic! Oh, wouldn't it just love to make its Michael out of someone who literally shares his DNA?
There's a lot to be said about the Mimic, but one thing to note is that it's really, really obviously a metaphor for the cycle of abuse, or at the very least a cycle of violence. Edwin is hurt, so he beats the Mimic. The Mimic is hurt, so it learns violence and begins to enact it on other people. It sees a tragedy unfold in front of it, and all it does is copy. Whatever you do to it, it will do to someone else. This focus can be seen throughout the books, and not just with the Mimic.
With Fazbear Frights, Into the Pit is about a monster hiding under the facade of a loving father. What we found shows a man being assaulted by his trauma until it burns him alive. Delilah's backstory in 1:35 a.m. focuses on a child abuse survivor desperately clinging to the first person to give her affection, only for him to leave her with nothing, and then for her to abandon the Ella doll as soon as it doesn't do what she wants. The Billings brothers in Hide and Seek are at the very least emotionally neglected and take it out on each other. Eleanor repeats her attack on teen after teen. Tales from the Pizzaplex, Lally repeats his game. Jace and Aiden destroy Haps, and Haps destroys them in turn. Astrid hopes for Nexie to pretty much replace her deadbeat mom, but Nexie takes on her mom's focus on appearance and begins breaking the girl down in more ways than one. Even more stories have these as minor but deliberate elements, such as the Other Camper's Story and Bunny Call.
Why do we bring this up? Because it is a recurring motif, my friends. The cycle of abuse is a horrifying concept in of itself. The idea that the pain will continue over and over. And with the Mimic being so focused on this, and this idea appearing in more than one incidental story, hence recurring theme, who's to say it isn't going to continue that legacy and recurring theme with Vanessa? Vanessa is an Afton, raised far away from the dangerous man in a rabbit costume, but even she can't escape the past, especially when she dug into it herself. Why agree to be a beta tester for a game about your family history? Maybe if no one's being honest about it.
Everyone expects you to uphold the family legacy, but nobody will tell you what it is. So you go digging, and you dig a little too far, and the glitching rabbit sees an Afton in its midst. So it wants to replay the game, do the story over again, and have one Afton replace another. Turn her literally into her own father.
Vanessa used to love this game when she was a... Vanessa! Oh no, she's still in the building! We need to stop those me's before they get to her, or she could turn into me! That's every child's worst nightmare! Well, not me specifically. Other children aren't afraid of turning into me. It's just that I'm saying turning into your parent, that's what's scary. Vanessa!
But no matter what the Mimic intended with Vanessa, we think this era of FNaF will be about breaking that cycle. Because those caught in the cycle are not doomed to it forever. Casey in Dance With Me learns to take responsibility and forms a bond with a mother better than the one who abandoned her. The Bobby Dot shows Abe taking these broken robots, directly compared to traumatized children, and giving them a home and a family. Ralph makes an effort to be a better parent for his daughter than his father was for him, and it shows in how much they love each other.
And in terms of the Mimic, breaking its cycle means breaking the plot of Five Nights at Freddy's. And that plot broke when Gregory got away. He was supposed to die. He was chosen to die. But he said no. He decided he didn't want to play the same game with the same villain. He was going to start a new one.
Come again soon.
Well, that was fun. Was there anything we were supposed to do before we finish this video?
Let me check. I got all the sprites done.
Thank you for that.
We read the week before.
Did that on stream for 8 hours.
We acquired the coloring book.
There's my boys.
Caught you up on Little Nightmares lore for the next video.
Yes, I can use Lilith Mac's Big Bad Wolf as the credits song.
It's not a 6 theory, technically.
It'll happen one day.
And Inky's been fed. No, I think we're good.
Okay, good. Hey, should we have finished playing Into the Pit?
She fucking attacked me through the blanket.
Cat attack.
She fucking pounced on the blanket.
Cat attack.
I got fucking attacked. Yeah. Why did you attack me? Little shit. Where was I?